All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started as folks are continuing to log on. Thank you for joining us. It's a great opportunity right now to have this discussion that I think is so very important. It's about opportunity. It's about the future. It's about building relationships and partnerships that create stronger ties geopolitically. But what I like about the trade topic is that it brings things home of opportunities for Nebraskans to make or produce a product to ship to places all around the world, and that spells opportunity. So with us today, we have the Honorable Ted McKinney, USDA Undersecretary for Trade and Foreign Ag Services. This is a position that is very important to U.S. agriculture. So Secretary McKinney, thank you for joining us. Prior to the Undersecretary's time at USDA, he served as Director of the Indiana Department of Agriculture under then Governor Mike Pence. Also joining us is Norm Krug, the founder and CEO of Preferred Popcorn of Chapman, Nebraska, a powerhouse in Nebraska popcorn and exporting, just a fantastic and growing operation there outside of Grand Island. Finally, we have Kirk Zeller. Kirk is the founder of the Silicon Prairie Center of Ravenna, Nebraska, located in Ravenna. And he's a subject matter expert in market development, brings an expertise on Japan as well, and the opportunities that exist and strategies that can be employed as we do see, I think, more and more opportunities with trade. I think that the advancements in trade policy over the last couple of years are probably the best kept secret. It's certainly underreported. When you look at kind of the views 3-4 years ago about what could be done, and then what did get done, tremendous. When you look at USMCA and the fact that it was done in a bipartisan fashion, and that wasn't just by chance, but the fact that the USMCA got done is a huge testament that, yes, we can work together in Washington. Yes, we can sort through some tough issues, make no mistake. And to look at where we are currently, where we need to go, I think now with the pandemic and what I will predict is some return of U.S. manufacturing, PPE and other products as well, supply chains in general. I think that we are well poised now with better trade policy and tax policy, incidentally, that we can see more U.S. companies do better moving forward, rather than having policies that just kind of chase our producers and even companies as a whole out of our country. And so, as we do move forward, I'm glad that we've had some advancements in trade with Japan, China, obviously USMCA. Now we're looking at the UK. Kenya is another opportunity as we engage Kenya as a precursor to hopefully other trade agreements around the continent of Africa. I think trading goods and services can build not just better political partnerships, but it can increase the standard of living without us sending a check in foreign aid to a country per se. That we'll have an opportunity to help our own economy, theirs as well. And oftentimes resources end up in better places when there's increases in the trade of goods and services, rather than just a check coming from the federal government. So we'll have each of our panelists here this morning share a little bit of perspective as we do move forward in basically trade and the pandemic and building our communities through trade. And so with that, Undersecretary, would you like to begin? Tell us, just kind of give us your insight moving forward.
Surely. Am I coming through okay?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Sounds good.
Well, Congressman, this is a real honor, and I mean that. I have known of and heard of the famous 3rd District of Nebraska for a long time, and to meet with many of you. I've actually been through it. It's been a long time. I was back in the private sector then, but at one point I wanted to understand what the heck these great big circles looked like from the air, and I got to see and kick some dirt and understand how that works. The same with some center pivot irrigation systems. And then not to mention a long-time relationship, a very strong relationship with Undersecretary Ibob, my good friend and colleague, and my wife with his wife, Teresa, who is just one of the best of the best. So it's just great. I want everybody listening to know that I tried to make a deal with the congressman and he didn't give. I wanted to say, if I did this, would he say something to the Nebraska football team to just let the Boilermakers have a victory on December 5. And he hung in there tough. He didn't give an ounce. And so we'll just have to do battle on a level playing field, even though it is in West Lafayette, Indiana. So he's hanging in there for all of you. Well, listen, what I've found works well. I'm going to just take a few minutes because I really would rather take questions and try to do that way because it's tailored better to you. But let me just do a quick whirlwind around some parts of the world. And many of those areas, Mr. Congressman, you already have mentioned. It is not lost upon me that that district is #1 in cattle and calves. I think it's both for sure. In fact, a lot of the cow-calf operations will send calves to your part of the world. I think the rise in your beef industry, I think Mr. Ibob had a lot to do with that. Maybe some of you as well. Has caused for a lot of our calves that might normally have gone to Texas or Oklahoma to stop short and go to Nebraska. So #1 there, certainly #1 in corn. We know that very, very well. And then not too bad in soybeans and wheat and other crops. And so I know this district very well because of the prominence in agriculture. So I want you to know that when I get up, and this is the way I grew up on a large farm north of Indianapolis, Indiana, by about 45 minutes. My twin brother continues to manage the farms. We've been in seed corn, seed beans, a swine finishing operation for about 45 years. So I feel like I've been there and done that. Detasseled seed corn, mostly through the Pioneer brand. In fact, my brother and I put ourselves through college. We had about 300 kids out there for about 15 years. So I know what 5 a.m. mornings are like and 10 p.m. evenings are like. And so there's an affinity to what you all do in agriculture. And I take that through processing as well. I don't want to forget you, Norm, because you know, the farmers do a great job producing it, but a lot of that gets processed, whether it's animal feed or popcorn, and then is exported. So I'm thrilled to be in this position. And Congressman, you're right. We're a humble lot here. We're proud that it's you all that are benefiting from the sales. And I think we're going to be up. We'll set some new records this year in beef, pork, and poultry, I think. And so very pleased for that. And if that's a result of some of the activities that the team and I and all of you have done, we'll just let that happen and be proud of that. Quick spin around the world. China, we're very, very pleased with phase 1 so far. Do I think that they'll make and achieve by December 31 the $36.5 billion they committed to? Probably not, but there's reasons for that. COVID set in China. It then migrated here. Containers were all caught up in ports in the Asia Pacific area. But when all that started to get straightened out, we saw sales pick up significantly about April 1, April 15, and they've been on a real run, particularly for, I think, the things that you all produce and sell. Norm, I can't say that I know how popcorn has been going, but certainly commercial corn, sorghum, pork, my goodness, it's been on a terror run, and soybeans and the like. And just looking at the price I saw yesterday, I think was a new high if I have my records straight. So we'll take that. And remember, they have till December 31, and that's when we count. We'll not know till a month after that. We always look back in arrears. But about February 1, we're going to know exactly what they brought into their ports and thus what was paid for. We cannot forget, phase 1 is a 2-year program. And a lot of the purchases now are for delivery after January 1, after December 31. So I don't mind that there's a head start on sales into the next calendar year. So we'll see how it goes, but so far so good for at least a lot, if not all of the products that are produced and processed in your very well noted third district there, Congressman. I don't know what to project after this year. I hope beyond hopes that phase one will continue. I hope the purchase commitments will be honored well into and including all of 2021. I can give a ledger sheet that says on the good side, we know that China likes and respects the quality, the safety, and the quantity of our products. They need that, particularly as they rebuild those herds. I'll point out that as they rebuild those swine herds, it's no longer 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 pigs in the backyard, in part fed with scraps from the kitchen table. No, 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 no. They are going as modern as we have, and then some. I have seen some 6-story swine production facilities. I saw a 12-story swine production. And I think, I don't know this, but I think they're going to want very high quality soybean meal, DDGs and the like. And so I hope that bodes well. My hope that maybe they and we can both say, you know what, food for livestock, poultry, and humans should be compartmentalized over here to the side, and we'll let the disagreements that we have on so many things exist over here, and just let things involving food and sustenance for people, sustenance for crops and critters. Let's just hope that goes on, but we'll see. But so far for this calendar year, I'll take it. I remain hopeful that we can see some ethanol and maybe some DDGs get going. We're running out of time because it's about a 6-week boat trip over there, but we'll see if we can't get some more product into China. So I'm bullish for right now. I am not Pollyannish, and I think you know the difference. Let me move to the UK. I do believe that the UK and the US will come up with a good deal. It's not done yet. The really heavy lifting has yet to occur, but a very significant decision was made and announced yesterday or the day before, where the Parliament did not accept the crazy amendments that would have called for all of our exports, notably on beef and pork, to have to meet those same fictitious high golder than gold standards that they claim to have. I do not doubt, in fact, I support the fact that they have very high standards. What we have continued and repeatedly tried to communicate is we have just as high standards. It's a myth that came out of Brussels primarily. It's a protectionist myth. We've invited so many people to come over, pointing in any direction. We'll take them to whatever barn we see and we'll let them show, we'll show them that our animal welfare standards would rival theirs. They're different, of course, but that doesn't mean they're any less humane or more humane. So I think we're going to have a good deal. And I'm drooling at the possibility of the UK getting out from under the Brussels control and being able to speak as their own voice. It is significant. They're a G7 country, for crying out loud. As optimistic as I am about the UK, I am equally as pessimistic about the EU. Never mind that they claim proudly to be the largest food and ag market in the world, and maybe that's true. The self-righteousness exceeds anything that they've seen and I've seen. It started when the precautionary principle was introduced 25 years ago. That led to the no biotech. We're concerned about the safety. Well, we proved that long ago, like maybe 20, 25, 28 years ago. And then came along the change in how they do risk assessment, where essentially there can be no residues of any sort, nothing. And just ask our nut crop folks, mostly the almond teams out of California. It is just a sight to behold. We've tried for 7 years to add to our market share over there, and we're still flat. Meanwhile, theirs continue to grow here. And then now they have the EU Green New Deal branded as farm to fork, where the intent is to ban 50% of the pesticides, force a reduction in fertilizer usage by 1/3, and oh, by the way, not allow any crops or critters that come into the EU to have used antibiotics. And I don't mean for growth promotion. I was in industry when we led the charge to get rid of antibiotic use and growth promotion. I'm talking about if the critter is coughing, you can't even give it an antibiotic. And I think that is just draconian. So we've drawn a very bright line in the sand, a very bright line, and said, no, we're not going to go along with this. We're not going to try to accommodate this. And I think we are right to do that, because what it'll lead to is the maximum residue level will go to zero, and anything that might have glyphosate or anything else, even at a part per quadrillion, can no longer be exported. And they're worse, they're exporting this philosophy. So I'm very, very concerned about our friends in Europe, because it's just gone off the deep end. You mentioned Kenya. We are very excited about Africa, not just because we want to go there. We've always wanted to, but now in a very major way, they're wanting us to get there. Why? Well, a lot of the graft and the corruption at the ports has subsided. It's still there, but it's significantly less. And many of our companies, Norm, I don't know if you had that experience, but many wanted to sell there. But when they were faced with the decision of keeping their ethics or losing their ethics, they said, I'll pass. I'll just grow my business elsewhere. So a lot of that has been resolved, not all, but a lot of that. And furthermore, I think they are seeing that China is playing a much larger role there. Some of that is good. You know, there's trade going on, but the IOUs that the Chinese are imposing on them is a pretty nasty and long-tailed barbed wire tail. And so they're saying, we want to diversify. We do not want to cozy up with any one or two countries. And they're also complaining a lot about the heavy hand that the EU has been putting on them. You will not use this technology. You'll not use that one. This is how you'll grow your product. And they want to try some of the same technologies that we have. So we're working on a free trade agreement with Kenya. The intent is to not stop there. Now, we're not expecting any country to do a cookie cutter approach. If they want something different than Kenya, that's fine. We'll talk to them about that. We want what they want. We want a win-win. But at the same time, I suspect a deal with Kenya will be an outstanding model that others might look at, and then we can go from there. The Western Hemisphere, it's outstanding. Oh my gosh, there is such like-mindedness in the adoptions of technologies. It's very exciting. Venezuela and Cuba might be the exceptions, and we'd love to see particularly Venezuela come around and be a democracy again, but that's a longer-term play. And then finally, I'm very, very excited about the Asia Pacific area. If you're not tracking Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, oh my gosh, are we selling there? Now, to be sure, no 4 or 5 of those countries will make up for the size and magnitude of opportunities in China. So we do want to keep a harmonious sales in food and ag with China. But Vietnam has been buying and buying big. The Philippines has come around buying and buying big. We're now working, I was just at lunch the other day with the Indonesian ambassador. Good man, he's a Purdue Boilermaker for his undergrad, and he understands what trade both ways, not one way, not a we win, they lose, two-way trade can do. So we're very excited. In fact, I've spent more of my 450,000 international air miles in the Asia Pacific than anywhere else. So those are a few, and then I have to conclude with USMCA. I will admit I was one of those saying, don't blow it up, don't blow it up. It's been good for US, Mexico, and Canada agriculture, and it was, but I was being a little selfish. It was not necessarily good for the auto and the auto parts industries and so many more. And there were things we had to straighten out with both Canada and Mexico. Dairy in Canada. And by the way, it looks like they're trying to replicate those nefarious ways of keeping out any and all dairy. Not fair. And we're watching that very carefully. So USMCA is a better deal. It's a better deal, I think, for everybody because it was agreed to by all. And I think it sets us up for another 15, 20 years with regular reviews of that. So I'll stop there, Mr. Congressman, and just say that I'm very excited about the future. I'm not Pollyannish. Trade is not fair and reciprocal around the world, but I am so appreciative for President Trump and Secretary Perdue giving me and others the permission to be tough. Not unfair, not unfair. We seek win-win, and I mean that. I live that. But there was unfair trade, and we have straightened or been straightening out a lot of that, and that's why I think the prognosis looks good. I just hope that no matter who comes out with the victory V in the presidential election, that that this kind of thing is sustained, because it's fair, and it's working, and it's straightening things out. So I'm going to stop there and say thank you, Mr. Congressman.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Norm, do you want to give us your insights?
Sure, and I would want to begin also with saying thank you for the opportunity. And Congressman Smith has always been a leader in trade since we began our business, and you can always count on him to be consistent and helpful when it comes to trade matters. And under Secretary McKinney, we banter some, but I also want to thank you and compliment you on the great job you've done. The last time we met personally, you were just beginning to work on the USMCA agreement, and you were optimistic about it, and you were heading into that, what turned out to be a long negotiation, but a very successful one. And you've been very consistent. What you just outlined is true. It's what you said then, and you're saying it again now. And at that time, you knew it was going to be hard trade with China, and that's been a long, hard-fought battle, and yet you've done a great job. So my compliments to you and your team and the administration for doing what you said you were going to do. It's really quite remarkable that I think it was 4 or 5 years ago when we last had a chance to have lunch actually together, and been very consistent and worked very hard for our country, for agriculture. And so thank you for your efforts and all those air miles. I know what those are like, and that's pretty exhausting as you bounce around the world and represent ag. So we appreciate what Congressman Smith and his team have done, and what the federal government has done in order to promote trade. I echo your comments as you bounce around the world there a lot in what you talked about in each country. To give the viewers a little background about Preferred and how we got into trade, I'd like to say it was a result of a brilliant strategy, but it was more a result of desperation when we first started about in 1998. And we were just farmers who had a desire to add value to agricultural products and add a marketplace for local farmers. At that time, and still today, we're very good at production, and we're the U.S. farmers are among the best for sure in the world at production. And so it was our goal to add value. And so we started out, and I'll always remember sitting in a little tiny office. It was not much bigger than, it was actually kind of a remodeled chicken house, and where we started. And here comes in over 200 trucks of popcorn, of which we thought when we planted it that it was sold, but it wasn't. And we're a small company domestically. We had no name recognition, and we weren't having great luck at selling our popcorn. And so we knew that we had to do something beyond Nebraska. And just to get some perspective, I always tell this story, but it's a pretty good one because we're all familiar with the Huskers and the university. And so here are these 200 trucks of popcorn coming into our plant, and I'm just originally started out as an investor and one of the farmers, and because of need ended up being one of the salesmen. But I called the University of Nebraska, and I thought, well, maybe I can sell all 200 trucks. Maybe they'll need it. They've got all the sports venues, and I had some contacts there, I believed. And so we had a good talk, and they were very sympathetic. But the whole University of Nebraska only uses 1 truck per year, and that was being donated to them. So I knew I was in a little trouble. I wasn't going to sell my 200 trucks to the university, and I knew that we had to think outside of the state in order to move that much popcorn. So we began going to trade shows, meeting wonderful people around the globe. And so we make our first sale happened to be to Indonesia. And again, I was quite excited. I had a load of popcorn. But when you go into the local bank and you say, well, I finally got things going. We made some sales. We're going to be shipping to Indonesia. Well, the local banker is scared to death. He's not interested in that kind of a risk or exposure, selling popcorn to someone all around the world. And you start talking about trade. And then a man I'll always be grateful to, his name was Barry Dent, and he was involved in the Export-Import Bank of America, visited our little office and explained that there was a program that was available where you could export and encourage exports, and you could get insurance so that you could send popcorn to those other side of the world, and they would give you a guarantee that you would be paid if the customer failed. But that would be one of my first points. In general, we've had great success in collection and export, so don't let that scare you. We export now to over 70 countries around the world. And in the last 22 years, we've had insurance with the Export-Import Bank of America, and we've only used them 2 times in 22 years. So in general, when you export, they know that they have to pay, and there's good tools to use to ensure payment, a letter of credits and documentary collection at site, and other tools that do make it safe. So don't let that scare you away. When we started, there were a lot of naysayers and, oh, you don't want to sell popcorn to someone in Japan or Indonesia or in the Middle East, or the many places you get opportunity. But there are tools, and the government has stepped in there and done a great job to give us the confidence to say to our local banker, don't worry, that's 90% covered because we have Export-Import Bank insurance. And to this day, it's still important. And because American farmers can land grain, not only popcorn, but as Ted has mentioned already, soybeans and corn and other ag products, beef and pork. We can produce that as efficiently as anywhere. We're proud that we can land popcorn in downtown Shanghai for less money than they're able to produce it themselves in China. And so that's pretty impressive upon American farmers' part. We can land grain in Tokyo, Japan. We can land it in Dubai, all at a very competitive price if we have free trade. And I've remarked several times, if we have a level playing field, and that's why Ambassador McKinney, Undersecretary McKinney, is out there working on that. And he's also right in that we also know it's not quite that easy. It'd be easy to say, let's just remove all tariffs and all trade barriers, and American farmers would benefit from that. But each country by nature wants to protect their own farmers. And so it's a continual negotiation, of which we've done a very good job in improving. I would agree with the EU. We'd love to be selling more product there and have immediate opportunities. Again, we can land it in Europe for nearly the same price as we can land it all over the United States. And because of a very efficient container system that we have, because there is some imbalances of trade, and they want to get those containers back to those countries. And so we actually did a study. We can hit the European ports for nearly the same price as we can hit and distribute throughout the United States, which is amazing. But they aren't logical as far as taking a look at things like GMO. It was really entertaining to me. We had some good European people here in our office, but we've got to do a better job of communicating, I believe, with them, because their understanding of GMO, they don't even believe us. We can be at a trade show and talk about genetic modification and all popcorn, not just preferreds, but all popcorn in the United States is non-GMO. We haven't even created a genetically modified hybrid in the United States. And yet when we're at a trade show and we say non-GMO, they just flat don't even believe us. They just think, oh, it's America. Your product must be poisonous. In fact, one group of visitors, we were visiting a farm, and to give them a tour and show them American agriculture. And they were so concerned about genetic modification that one person raised their hand up and go, well, when we get to the farm, could that be GMO? And I said, well, it's possible. They're picking seed corn. We're not sure of the hybrid, but it could be genetically modified. Then we go on, talk a little bit about the tour instructions, and that same person raises her hand back up and said, is it okay if I just stay in the van while you get out? So she was so concerned about genetic modification. She didn't even want to get out of the van, as if that was going to be something that attacked her, like the COVID. And so we have a lot of education to do, a lot of communication to do to let people know about how safe and good American agriculture is. And that's part of the process. And that's part of the challenge of what we do, and all the more reason, though, to trade and do trade. Sometimes people say, well, do you trade with that country, and why would you trade with them? What about their policies, and why would you trade with China, for example? But my belief, and Preferred Popcorn's belief, is we have more impact by trading than we would if we just said, we're not messing with you guys. We don't agree with your trade, with your policies or your human rights policies. But yeah, I have had those people in my home in Central City, Nebraska, and they've been around our table and they've seen our mission statement. Preferred Popcorn's mission statement is that we strive to honor God by producing high quality products and serving our customers with integrity. And we have it on the wall. And our Chinese customers come in, and it's really exciting to me. One of our Chinese customers who was here and representing COFCO and the Chinese government chose us that day because of our mission statement. So we have an impact on other countries by trading with them. And that's our belief. And there are great people in every country. What's been amazing, because I was a Nebraska farm boy. Chapman, Nebraska has a population of 295, 300 people on a good day. If Nebraska's playing, it's probably only about half of that population. So, because about half the town goes to the game. But it shows that you can accomplish anything if you have a positive mindset and have the goal and faith. And so I was a farm boy who hadn't been hardly out of the state, much less out of the country. And we went to Mexico first because that's a great partner. So I am really appreciative of the USMCA agreement. It makes so much sense for us to trade with Mexico. And there's a lot of great people there. They have their challenges and problems, but they don't like those guys either. That most of them are really great, wonderful people. So, and we found that all over. I have great friends in Japan. I have great friends in China, Canada, and it's a really privilege to know people around the globe. And in the end, it's really about relationships and doing what you say you're going to do. They aren't looking for high-powered salespeople that have a big story. They're looking for people that will do what they say they're going to do. And if you're going to ship 10 containers of popcorn and you're going to ship it with these particular specs, and you do that, that works out very well. And it's not without challenge. Certainly there's challenges of documentation and tariffs, and a lot of times there's some non-tariff barriers of trade that you have to work through. But collection has not been a big problem. People around the world know you're not going to continue to sell them grain if they don't pay you for it, and we've had a great luck with that. And that's what stops a lot of countries, a lot of companies from exporting, is the concern over payment, and that's certainly a hurdle that can be crossed. And then it's just about, after that, relationships and being willing to travel some. But again, during this time, we've done things virtually as we're doing now, and that's effective also. So I would encourage the panelists, the people that are on to use the tools that are out there from both federal government, state government. We have a local organization in Nebraska called MEDA that does a great job. So I guess I've probably said enough there. It might be more stories than you want. The letter said encourage some stories, and that's dangerous for me because I could tell stories all day. But is that kind of what you're looking for, Adrian?
I think so. Yes.
You
Thank
have
you,
any
Norm, for
specific questions like you're
sure for
able to.
sharing your perspective and your journey in exporting. Let's go to Kirk Zeller. Kirk, thanks for joining us.
Thank you
Take it
very
away.
much. Thanks for having me. So, like Norm, I'm a farm boy from Nebraska, a small town north of Kearney called Ravenna, which one of our colleagues on this call knows well. So I think, for me, ag and trade were really kind of, at the start of my career. I mean, I grew up here in Nebraska at a very, very different time, which the top three folks on this call, which Undersecretary McKinney and Norm will definitely remember when we'd be, in the tractor and the truck listening to talk radio, and it was dominated at that time by the U.S.-Japan trade friction. Kind of the attitude that it was impossible to sell American products in Japan. And after listening to that, working on the farm, I became very determined to go to Japan and prove them all wrong. So there's just kind of this undertone that it was just impossible. There's nothing we could do about it. I'm like, I don't accept that. I'm going to go there. I'm going to study, figure out how to do business in Japan. And I think I went very much with an attitude of, of kind of working to balance trade. But in the course of going to school there and studying there, it became really clear to me that it was important, touching on something that Undersecretary McKinney said, of really finding kind of the win-win in things. I think, that's an important, aspect of conducting trade is to find some common ground and win-win, and don't go in with an attitude of, of how you're going to, how you're going to win. Go in with kind of a mindset of how can we find something that's very much win-win. And then as my career developed in Japan, and right at the same time the EU is coming together, and so I kind of set my sights on the EU and learning how to do business in Europe, and had the opportunity to go to Europe and work and do a couple degrees in Europe and research for my doctorate on developing the European market and getting into the European market. And I wanted to kind of echo something that Norm had said, and I think a lot of people, when it comes to trade, there's this kind of with some people this kind of attitude of, oh, you shouldn't go to China, you shouldn't do business with China. I very much agree with what Norm said, and I think that by engaging with other cultures, we have an opportunity to learn from each other and influence each other in very positive ways. And so I think with through these commercial activities, there's ways of having an element of diplomacy in it, if you will, and as you build relationships with with folks in these different countries. So now with COVID, things have changed quite a lot, to be honest. After all those years of doing stuff overseas, when I give advice to people looking to go overseas, particularly to Asia, I would always tell them, now you can't expect to get things done by sitting in your office. You got to get on a plane, get over there, meet people, learn about the culture, learn about the local environment, build the relationships. Don't expect really to get anything done for 2 or 3 trips. Invest that time. Well, with COVID, it's a little bit hard to give that advice. So kind of had to change, change the advice a little bit. But I think one of the silver linings of the situation we're faced with now is it levels the playing field a bit. Because if you're a small, scrappy company, you're trying to do business globally. If you're Norm, it's expensive to go and travel to 50 different countries in a year. But right now with COVID, you're kind of on a level playing field with the better resourced, larger organizations, because everybody's doing Zoom right now. Effectively, the cost is nothing to do a Zoom meeting and engage with, potential customers in other markets. And so I feel like that's that's been one silver lining of it. For me, I had years where I'd be in 25 countries in 1 year, and honestly, I've kind of enjoyed being on Zoom and showing up 2 minutes before a meeting instead of having to leave 2 days before the meeting. But I think I think a lot of people probably are a little bit disheartened by this, and I'm sure have found challenges in it. But I think you just kind of have to look at things a little bit differently, and find ways of leveraging these kinds of technologies to really reach out to potential customers around the world. So I'll keep my comments brief, Congressman Smith, and happy to take any questions.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. And as our participants come forward with questions, just type that in there, and I'll share your question with the panel. Again, thank you to our panelists. I mean, when you consider all the expertise that you guys have, this is a rock star panel, and I really appreciate your time. Norm, remind me, what percentage of your product roughly is exported?
We're at least 50% that we export, and interestingly, it's been that way since the beginning. It's not like we've built the 50. We started out at 50 because of our situation of being a new company, and it started to trend back to domestic a little bit, but the COVID has made exports just as important today as they were when we first started. You can imagine, with the shutdown of the cinema industry and just the general all gatherings where popcorn is consumed, football stadiums and soccer stadiums, and it's in general been an incredible challenge to continue to be in business when you take a big sector of your business, of your customer base away due to COVID. Trade once again has stepped up, and there are lots of parts of the world where they consume popcorn at home, and they don't only rely on the cinema industry to market popcorn. And happy to say that just recently, after pretty big cutback throughout the summer, we're currently back to capacity, shipping containers out around the globe, and we're shipping in the countries. I was teasing our group. We're shipping places I can barely spell, much less pronounce. But that's what's keeping us going. We're back at full capacity, and we're exporting. So once again, exports really, really important as you look at any situation, whether it's a time of prosperity or a time of challenge. Having that balance, having the whole world to sell to as a potential market has been very beneficial, and coming in again to help save the day.
Very good. Kirk, what kind of observations have you had you've obviously worked in a lot of markets around the world. What would be an example of what you've observed from, say a mom and pop operation? Of course, Norm started out a lot smaller than he is now, even with the 200 trucks. But they're even smaller exporters than that. So what kind of observations have you had, and then how that has equated to opportunity for growth moving forward?
I like to talk. Sometimes I like to give us an example. This popcorn company in Nebraska, but somehow I feel like we've covered that one today. One of the businesses that we're incubating here is going to be an example. So, we've developed, these products for mobility devices, and we're working towards tracking mobility. And this is a product that we're developing right here in Nebraska. We're about to launch a website to sell them here in Nebraska. One of the things we're going to do is the Grow Nebraska website as well. But the next step is one of my interns here from UNK is going to be going back to Japan in a few weeks, and working with my business partner in Japan to get that business up and running. So within months of launching in the U.S., we'll be launching in Japan as well. And that's that's a scrappy business that was started and funded by myself and my my business partner. And I think there's other ones like that in this era where you can sell online. I think there's a lot of even folks with Etsy type businesses that expect significant portion of their revenue selling to folks overseas through the internet. And I think the internet has really changed that that dynamic quite a lot. In the past, if you were a little company, a lot of times you'd have to find go to a lot of lengths to find some kind of distribution partner in all these markets around the world. But with the internet and the ability to ship directly, it's really enabled some of these small, family mom and pop, husband and wife type businesses to really be able to go global almost immediately.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Secretary McKinney, what do you think? I've been saying a lot lately that although I would not prefer to be in the situation we're in with the pandemic, there's a lot we can take away from it moving forward, more than a vaccine even. What, in terms of trade policy, do you think we can take away from the pandemic? And I mean, I also make the point that, all the PPE being made in China doesn't even have to act maliciously for that to kind of be a problem during a pandemic. Outside of pandemic, not as big of a deal, but during a pandemic, believe you me, it's very problematic. And not necessarily just on that, but what do you think we can take away from the pandemic moving forward with production and exports and trade?
Sure. Well, one of the valuable things about being in the food and ag business is it's this, you heard me say earlier, it's the sustenance of life. It better be moving. I mean, hardly any country, very few around the world are self-sufficient. And so trade must continue. And I think most people agree with that. So that's the first thing. So that automatically puts a spotlight on making sure trade goes. We were thrilled when COVID set in. No, let me repeat that. We were not thrilled when COVID set in, but when it did set in, we were thrilled that most of the world learned the lessons of 2008, 2009 with the big recession and did not follow some of the hoarding, the shutting off the border practices. That was fairly draconian back then. Some of it occurred, a few countries did, but by and large, people got the message, keep the borders open. Now, if it had continued in a draconian format, I could believe that some countries that did not close borders would have. So without any doubt, trade will always include people getting on a plane, going to those very large and significant trade shows where, as I like to say from my sales days, you can be belly to belly with a customer. You can show your wares, particularly applicable for popcorn. Our wines and distilled spirit companies are finding great value in here, try this, taste what I've got. So that's not going to continue, or that is going to continue. But by golly, we have learned a lot of lessons about the value of the technology we're on now. Let me give an example. We had 8 very significant in-person, get on a plane ag trade missions planned for this year. And those deliver very significantly. I mean, not just a few million, I mean, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in sales. Well worth the effort. It also gives me a chance as leading those to go in and work one-on-one with government officials to try to break down market, break in on market access. And I'll repeat again, two-way. I want to help them as much as I hope they're helping me. So there is that. But we're going to end the year with four virtual ag trade missions. We're already 2 down, and the test run was pet food sales into China. The one difficulty was all the electronic. They have a lot of border controls. You can only imagine if we think we're tight on security, man, try doing a virtual, but it worked. We got it done, and they were very, very happy. And so we're going to ramp that up, and that will be a major tool in our toolbox from this point forward, because there are some that just get it. They got to go there, meet the customer. And there are others that are less prone to do that. And I think where we're going to go is people doing a blend.
Mhm.
Norm and Kirk, you have your customers, you know them, they know you, trust is established. This is a great mechanism to sustain that. You don't always have to get on a plane. So if there's anything good coming out of COVID, it might be this new tool or more accentuated tool. And my gosh, the technology we've got, I've seen it, I've participated in it. You have on your screen walking into a very nice hotel. You see the coffee stand, you see the Q&A corner where you can go on any questions. You look right, you look left, you see the private rooms that you're actually going to go into for private discussions. The value about the Foreign Ag Service, and just a little quick, because our team is there to help dumb down, make it easy, build trust in this process. We are now in 97 embassies or consulates around the world. And we are, by virtue of our local organized, our locally employed staff, in 35 more. They are there to take you by the hand and help you through it. And they are outstanding. You talk about servant leaders. They are the best of the best. So you have them. We have the market access program, the foreign market development program, and now with COVID, we have the ag trade promotion program. And yes, they go to all the big commodity groups, but we topped off in a nice way the groups that really help these folks. This is the ag trade promotion funds that would go to the Food Export Midwest group based in Chicago. And they help all the branded companies, the smaller ones. These are people that may be in the soybean business or the distilled spirits or all that, but aren't meant to work through a large commodity group that are so effective for our large commodities. And so they got a topping off, and they've got plenty. I mean, they've got an excess amount to spend next year, just because this year they didn't spend as much on travel and expenses of hotels and exhibitry and all of that kind of stuff. So the Congress is in love with market access program and FMD funds. They really are. Many presidents, never mind the politics, this is not a political statement. Many presidents zero those out because either they don't understand it or they're trying to make a statement about budget cut and fiscal responsibility. Congress always puts those back in. The return on the taxpayer dollar is like 30 to 1. $30 for every taxpayer dollars. Enormously successful. So when you marry up the Foreign Ag Service, who know this and know the market's cold, throw in some matching funds, then rely on experts like these people to give some coaching, been there, done that, here's how you do it. It really makes what can be a complicated, fearful at times venture, and makes it much, much, much easier. And then we have a program that backstops those loans. I'll just tell you, my son is vice president for Asia Pacific at XM. So Norm, I know the program you're speaking of very well. We have a similar one for the large commodity. I mean, the Neo-Panamax shiploads of corn, soy, wheat, etc. And so there is insurance that can guarantee payment. So for those that have not done so and feel like they want to put their toe, their ankle, their knee in that water, I strongly advise trying it. There's a lot of help from the financial, from the insurance, and from the advice categories. I just had to get that out there, Congressman, because a lot of people don't understand all the tools that are there.
Right.
Congressman Smith, can I make one comment on Undersecretary McKinney's discussion there? So a few weeks ago, for one of the nonprofits I'm on the board of, we did a virtual trade mission to Japan. Now, this wasn't ag; it was healthcare related, and I think a number of people were a little bit pessimistic about what could be achieved by it. But due to the kinds of technology that he just mentioned, we were able to have a very productive meetings. We had breakout sessions, where you could, like we were discussing, you could actually walk into the room. You could see the faces of all the people that were at each of the tables. You could jump from one table to another table. And a number of people commented about that they felt like the networking was almost as effective as an in-person meeting. So I think there's a little bit of an attitude right now of I can't travel, I can't do anything with my business, I can't forge forward in trade, but that doesn't necessarily need to be the case. There are great tools out there that can help us still be able to push on and do what we need to do, even if we can't jump on a plane and travel to the other side of the world.
Right. So knowing that, man, there has been so much done in terms of trade in the last 2-3 years. What do you think? What dynamic there has the most staying power for? And I think probably all three of you could answer this. We do have a couple more questions as well, but what do you think is the new normal for trade that has been leveraged through USMCA and the most recent trade developments? Undersecretary, you want to take that one first,
Sure,
maybe?
sure, sorry. Well, I think it has to start with the quality of your product. I mean, people figured out pretty quickly if you don't have a product that meets their customer demand, and it doesn't always have to be that really, really robust quality, but boy, it better be good. And except for the EU, who loves to diss our products, the world knows the quality of US product and safety and so forth. So that's got to be the first thing. I think the integrity of you as a business person is there, and I don't worry about that with the US. Sometimes other cultures, maybe not as faith-based, don't know the golden rule. Their theme is screw somebody else first before you get it yourself. So I think there's that. But let me also say that, and this is not easy to say because we have been through some difficult times these last 2 or 3 years, but the permission that we were given to finally call a timeout and say fair is fair or it's not, and not be undiplomatic, not be unfair, but to force compliance. Until we told Indonesia, we're going to take away your $6 billion in tax credits. It's a program called Globalized System of Preference. It's designed for developing countries, Indonesia, India, many, $5, $6, $7 billion that we give them in the form of tax credits. Well, they were taking those, and then they were still buying all their product from some other country. So we said, we're going to take them away. Not because we don't like you. It's just you're not playing fair with the intent of the program. Guess what? We're now doing great business with Indonesia, better business with India.
Yeah.
And so we got tough, if I can say that. And I don't mean that in a negative way. We got tough and said, come on, we're a partner here. Take Korea. I'll just give it a great example. I did not understand when the president was very angry at South Korea. And this was at the time that Kim Jong-un was taking rockets into the Sea of Japan. Well, later I understood. How many thousands of people, how many military men and women have we had on the 38th parallel protecting South Korea since 1953? Millions, I'm guessing. And yet they're buying all their aluminum and steel from China, who was subsidizing with the deliberate attempt to drive countries out of business. How fair is that? So I think it's rounding the corner. The intent has never been to be angry and mean forever and a day. No. It was just to say, come on, dudes, let's straighten out. Let's be fair with each other. And I think we're achieving that. And I think we're seeing the results. And phase 1 is a great example. I think some of the things we're seeing with UMCA are a great example. A little too early to declare victory because we're still seeing Canada, God love them, it's back to their nefarious ways, it seems, with dairy. But at the same time, the wheat that was so inappropriately treated, our wheat going across the border was treated as feed grade, less expensive. The same variety of wheat coming south across the border was food grade. What's equal about that? So even though I love our friends north and the south of the border, you got to call timeout and say, look, come on, let's be fair about this. So that is, I think, the biggest change that we're experiencing. And no matter who is confirmed as the presidency, I hope that kind of behavior continues because you've got to be firm but fair.
Right. Very good. Kirk, do you want to add to any of that?
No, I mean, I don't have much to add. I think just wanted to mention, that I do agree that we need to make sure that it's fair and equitable and we hold our trading partners accountable. We do need to extend some courtesies, but we also need to be tough, when it's necessary. And I think building on something that Norm said, I think we, in representing our companies and our country, I think we need to, do what we say we're going to do. I think Norm said it earlier on, and I think we need to set an example of an expectation of how we want our trading partners to behave. If they're going to define our wheat one way, then I mean, it's got to go both ways. Right. And I think if we kind of take the lead in setting a good example, I think that's a good way to do trade. And if they don't follow that lead, then we need to hold them accountable.
Right. Yeah. And I think I hear a lot in terms of the environment in which I serve, that standards based, that everyone understands what needs to take place, and that mutual understanding can really leverage, I think, a lot of opportunity moving forward. Let's see, we have a question from Cindy Allen, I believe. Cindy, is your mic open by chance? Do you want to ask it, or do you want me to, I can read it here too.
Go ahead. Can you hear me, Adrian?
Yes, go ahead, Cindy.
Under Secretary McKinney, could you tell me what other countries are interested in the outcome of the trade agreement in process currently with Kenya?
You said what other countries?
In Africa. What other countries in Africa are watching the outcome of the trade talks with Kenya?
Well, I don't know the exact count, so I can't say that, but I can say, generally speaking, if the Africa Union, which represents nearly all of the countries of Africa, they are the spokesperson, and that's who we visit with and work with a lot. They all are very interested. Now, to be sure, there are questions, maybe even a touch of skepticism from some of the countries that we are not negotiating with. Why Kenya? Why not me? But we try to reassure them that we want to tailor it for each country, but they themselves will admit that if there is something that is uniform across Africa, it helps with flow. If there's regulations that are one way in Angola and different in South Africa and yet different still in Kenya, that makes flow between those countries very difficult. So I think they are much more optimistic than not. But to answer your question, many of the countries of Africa want a trade relationship with the U.S. Many of them do, and many of them have said that to me, and they have echoed that through the Africa Union.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. And by the way, we are pursuing that aggressively as an all of government approach. It's called Prosper Africa. So I talk frequently with my friends at Commerce, at USAID, certainly my team here, USTR for sure. And I'll add one more. When Ambassador Greg Dowd, the lead ag negotiator from USTR, finally got confirmed, he and his ag team at USTR rostered a priority list of what countries they'd like to do some sort of a deal with in ag. My team did the very same thing, but it was independent. You'll be pleased to know that if either we or they switched Vietnam or the Philippines, the lists would have been identical. So imagine that, two agencies of the US government thinking alike and fully aligned. I was very proud of that moment.
Very proud.
Very good. Very good. Well, gosh, I wish we had more time. I could probably have a good half a day, a line of questions for each one of you. I do want to encourage everyone to maintain the communication, maintain the dialogue. If you have questions, please let us know. Katie Morley is on the call today. She's my trade staff out of the Washington office. So she brings some great insight and perspective and experience with the trade topic, a few others as well, even in more than agriculture. But as you know, getting to serve on the Ways and Means Committee has been, I think, a great opportunity to really focus on trade and what can come about from that. I'm very excited about leveraging what we have now in our hands in terms of trade, leveraging that moving forward. It's just, I think, a great point where we are now. and we're seeing some of the benefits. And I think, but it is a high maintenance issue. We have to stay on top of enforcement. We have to stay on top of the fact that some will try to kind of squeeze things in another direction, and we need to be mindful of that. And we can be appropriate with that, and we don't have to overreact at times. But just to remind the world that yes, we are open for business. We expect a level playing field. If you want access to our markets, you need to give us access to yours. That's what trade is about. And imagine if we conducted domestic commerce with some of the international trade policies that are currently on the books. That just wouldn't work, and it would stifle innovation. It would stifle creativity, and above all, it would hurt consumers. So I think there's not enough told about the impact of good trade policy for consumers, and certainly workers in addition to that. So I just want to thank everyone for your time here today. And if you do have further questions, feel free to let us know. My website, adriansmith.house.gov, if you want more information, or certainly we can pass on your questions to the panelists here that we have today if you have further questions. So again, thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you to all of our participants. I appreciate this opportunity, and I hope we can gather again, hopefully in person. That would be nice.
That would be nice.
Meanwhile, it is a little more convenient and more cost effective to do Zoom, but it doesn't replace the in-person meetings. Certainly.
No, it doesn't.
So again, I say thank you, and I look forward to hopefully seeing all of you soon. Take care.
Take care.
Congressman.
Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.